Chapter 71. Challenge Fang Jingji. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations. The venue was naturally still the Qinfeng Academy, however, the location had shifted to the combat square behind the academy. 3 huge stages neatly occupied the vast combat square. Behind the stage was where the judges of the combat examination sat. Imperial Messenger Qin sat in the center seat, while 2 others sat beside him. One of them wore a black official robe. From the embroidery on his official robe, he seemed like the county head of the Huayan County. The other was dressed like a scholar, around 40.6 to 40.7 years of age. His tiny eyes were half opened and a few crops of white hair were evident at near his temples. A few invigilators waited below the stage, waiting for the gong signifying the start of the combat examination to sound out. The first round of combat examination, based on elimination. We will draw lots to determine leader and follower. The person who draws leader will be the stage leader, and can freely choose any person who drew the word follower. The winner will advance a level. The loser will be eliminated. There will only be 1 round of competition. Imperial Messenger Qin quickly announced the rules. These rules could be said to be simple and rough. Moreover, luck and chance were also important. Because, the person who drew the word leader very obviously had the power to act. But, things had always been like this, and who was to say that luck wasn't part of one's abilities? The drawing of lots proceeded very quickly, and each of the examinees chose, from 10 boxes, a small stone token with words written on it. Then, after the lots drawing ended, names appeared on the 2 roll stones representing leader and follower. Fang Jingji's luck seemed not too bad, drawing a follower word. That meant that his fate was decided by others. Li Hure and Meng Jiangshan's luck were not too bad either, and like Fang Jingji, drew a follower word. This caused their emotions to become rather pessimistic, sitting on their seats and sighing, heavens is playing with them, luck isn't fair. On the other hand, Fang Jingji's mood remained the same as always. Because, he realized something strange. The roll stone that represented the leader word actually bore Meng Yushu's name. Meng Yushu still can participate in the combat examination. Fang Jingji was rather confused, but didn't probe deeper. Then, he quickly realized something curious. A familiar face appeared at the venue. Wearing a brocade robe, and an icy cold expression on his face. Yan Xiu. How could Yan Xiu enter the combat examination venue? Fang Jingji was indeed confused. Because, those who could enter the examination venue were very obviously all examinees. But, Yan Xiu didn't even participate in the theory examination. And most importantly, when the lots were drawn previously, Yan Xiu didn't even go up the stage. Yan Xiu's name wasn't on the roll stone either. Here to watch. Fang Jingji could only use this explanation. But, to be able to enter the combat examination venue to watch was something that was rather stunning. At least, an average person wouldn't be able to do so. Just as he thought, a voice sounded out at his ear. Challenge Fang Jingji. Fang Jingji was slightly taken aback. Hadn't it just started? Who was so cruel as to select him out of the vast sea of people? This was the first round, in a real elimination competition. If one lost, no matter how good the results in the theory examination were, one would instantly be eliminated. With his reputation as the theory examination roll champion, he still couldn't scare this person. Raising his head, Fang Jingji understood. Because, the person that stood on the stage was the one wearing a yellow brocade robe with a sword at his waist. Meng Yushu. At this moment, the crowd of examinees grew excited. After the results were released at the theory examination previously, they naturally thought that Meng Yushu and Fang Jingji would definitely fight. But, they didn't realize that this fight would come so fast, appearing in the first round. Meng Yushu challenges Fang Jingji, this luck isn't normally so good. That's right, taking into account Fang Jingji's world champion results at the theory examination, as long as he doesn't lose the first round of combat examination, he would be able to, at the very least, pass the law of Dao examination. Looks like Meng Yushu has hardened his resolve to ensure Fang Jingji doesn't pass. That's natural. If it were you, getting reported by him at the theory examination, how would you let him pass the combat examination? The examinees discussed spiritedly, each of them lamenting Fang Jingji's bad luck. Because, the first round of combat examinations didn't even need to be watched to know that the results were decided long ago. After all, in their hearts, Meng Yushu was the only examinee who accessed Dao in this law of Dao examination. This was a round that lacked the most suspense, but, it was a round that everybody looked forward to most. Young Master's decision is indeed somewhat unexpected. On the judging stage, wearing a black official robe, the county heads gazed at the middle-aged scholar beside him and smiled gently. Young Master's ambition is large. If he challenged some random people, he might be afraid of getting laughed at. The middle-aged scholar looked at Meng Yushu standing on the stage, and looked as if everything was to be expected. Ha ha. Imperial Messenger Qin laughed gently, clenched the fist he placed below the stage, released it and didn't speak further. At this moment, Li Hue and Meng Jiangshan's gaze was also fixated on Fang Jingji. They had initially confirmed that Fang Jingji would definitely pass the law of Dao examination. But, now it seemed that this confirmation was about to turn into a question mark. Meng Yushu. That was the power of having accessed Dao. No matter how strong Fang Jingji was, he definitely couldn't be stronger than him. BVEC changing their mind, when they looked at Fang Jingji again, they were filled with pity. Fang Jingji, don't be disappointed. Even though you lost, but, you can take the examination again next time. As long as you don't meet someone like him next time, there will still be a chance. Li Hue reassured. That's right, Fang Jingji. Losing today is all because luck isn't on your side. Meng Jiangshan similarly advised by the side. Indeed, luck is not on my side. The edges of Fang Jingji's mouth curved into a smile. Then, he stood up slowly and strolled leisurely towards the stage. 3 stages hosted fights at the same time. Naturally, the other stages had already started to fight. However, compared to the other 2 stages, the stage in which Fang Jingji was at was completely surrounded by examinees. Under the other 2 stages, the number of people could be counted with one's fingers. The stark contrast was indeed a little unduly. In the end, Fang Jingji went up the stage. After the signal was given by the invigilator, the 2 cupped their fists, representing that friendship came first, while competition came second. Take out your weapon. After cupping his fist, Meng Yushu directly unsheathed his sword, which gave off an icy glow. I won't. Fang Jingji shook his head. Just as he prepared to snatch the first move, Meng Yushu stopped in his tracks. His gaze landed on Fang Jingji's coarse blue robe, and a cold smile suddenly appeared on his face. If you don't have any weapons, feel free to choose any below the stage. An arrogant expression appeared on Meng Yushu's face. I have a weapon, but, against you. I don't need any. Fang Jingji expressed the truth. These words not only caused Meng Yushu to be taken aback, even the examinees below the stage were stunned after hearing Fang Jingji's words. Immediately after, a wave of laughter erupted. Ha ha ha. He actually said that he won't need a weapon to fight Meng Yushu. Isn't this overestimating himself a little too much? I believe he thinks that by not using a weapon, his injuries would be lighter. The examinees very quickly guessed Fang Jingji's intentions and doubled over with laughter. On a seat not too far away, Yan Xiu's expression didn't change at all, but the finger he placed on the chair moved very slightly. On the judging stage, a glint appeared in Imperial Messenger Qin's eyes. Don't need weapons. Ha ha. Interesting. Chapter 72. This was possible. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations. If it was said that Fang Zhengzhi using his understanding of the law of Tao to achieve roll head in a theory examination was something that people were completely unable to believe. Then, faced with Meng Yushu who had accessed Tao, under the pressure of true power, yet still being able to win without using any weapons, that was simply something that downright couldn't exist. Naturally, it was impossible for Meng Yushu to believe this. But, Fang Zhengzhi's expression indeed caused him some unease. Because, that expression was too calm, and most importantly, a deep sense of disdain and contempt was clearly evident in Fang Zhengzhi's eyes. Stealthily shooting a glance at Yan Xiu, Meng Yushu saw that Yan Xiu's expression didn't change much. Then, he moved. He decided to use the most direct method to resolve this battle of large disparity in strengths. Die. With an icy glint, Meng Yushu leapt up. Then, the stage felt as if it had been splattered with a wave of raindrops. Or perhaps a better way of saying was that it was really raindrops. Because, within the lush white glow, one by one raindrops were rapidly falling from the skies. In an instant, those raindrops were falling towards Fang Zhengzhi. So powerful. Dao Seal summoning rain, and the sword following the fall of the rain. Most of the examinees didn't access Tao, and naturally were filled with admiration. Dao Seal, that was something that interpreted the existence of all creations, and what Meng Yushu used now was the Rainfall Dao Seal. Tracing the Rainfall Dao Seal and integrating sword techniques within the Rainfall Dao Seal. Under this situation, the sword could attack like the raindrops. At the judging panel, a slight smile appeared on the county head's face, evidently very approving of Meng Yushu's abilities. Plop plop plop. As the raindrops fell on the stage, fine thin cuts appeared on the red carpet that adorned the stage, looking as if it had been poured over by the rain of the spring. On the other hand, Meng Yushu gently landed on the ground. But Fang Zhengzhi had disappeared. This caused Meng Yushu to feel extremely shocked. He had clearly seen Fang Zhengzhi standing at his original location just now, furthermore, he simply couldn't avoid this technique. But very mysteriously, when his sword rain landed, it seemed to not have contacted any objects. How slow! A voice lightly sounded out from behind Meng Yushu. Meng Yushu was completely taken aback. Looking behind, he realized that Fang Zhengzhi was still standing at his original location, and below his feet were the scars that he had just created with his sword rain. How is this possible? Meng Yushu couldn't accept this at all. He simply couldn't understand how Fang Zhengzhi avoided his attack, and yet returned back to his original location. Not only him, even the examinees under the stage were absolutely confused. Meng Yushu leaping up, then causing visions of raindrop to appear in mid-air, then landing from the air, everything was perfect. Yet, Fang Zhengzhi stood at his original location all along. But when they blinked and looked again, they realized that there strangely weren't any scars at all on Fang Zhengzhi's body, as if Meng Yushu had ghosted through him. In the entire venue, other than the shock of the crowd, there were two other people whose expression were rather abnormal. One was Imperial Messenger Qin, the other was Yan Xiu. At this moment, a faint glint flashed in both their eyes. As if they had seen something extremely incredible. Fang Zhengzhi. Ha ha. This is indeed a battle of vastly differing strengths. Imperial Messenger Qin mumbled softly, his eyes seeming as if he was deep in thought. On the other hand, Yan Xiu lightly gripped the golden bone silver thread fan on his hands, and then, one word came from his mouth. Friend. On the stage, Fang Zhengzhi quietly stood at his original spot, staring at Meng Yushu whose face was filled with shock. Using rainfall as a seal, then integrating sword techniques within, not too shabby. Fang Zhengzhi thought for a while, then, nodded as if he realized something. But, when his voice entered Meng Yushu's ears, it was nothing but shame. A person who didn't even access Tao calling him not too shabby, if this was not shameful, what was? You actually mocked me as slow. Meng Yushu's expression turned cold. Pushing off the ground lightly with his feet, his body quickly changed into a few strange postures. A faint ray of green light flashed in mid-air, and the image of falling leaves flashed then subsided. Another Dao seal. This time, it should be the falling leaves. The attention of the examinees was once again absorbed by Meng Yushu. After all, even though Fang Jingji avoided Meng Yushu's attack just now, he seemed to have not moved at all. Most importantly, there were never any rays of light that radiated from Fang Jingji's body. Just like an extremely average person. Whoosh! Meng Yushu moved again. But this time, his body blurred and his movement tracks became extremely drifty. It felt just like a piece of leaf dancing in a strong gale. This time, he integrated the Dao seal into his body movements. An acute examinee quickly saw through it. Meng Yushu was using his body movements to mimic the dancing of falling leaves. Fang Jingji looked at the drifting Meng Yushu beside him. Suddenly, he felt that it was getting too boring. He actually wished to see whether Meng Yushu would have any new moves, but in reality, he was disappointed. Extremely disappointed. There was nothing too new and interesting about Meng Yushu's moves. Sigh. Fang Jingji sighed lightly. Then, clenching his hand into a fist, he calmly lowered himself into a small horse stance, as if he was trying to practice some sort of kung fu on the stage. Very slowly, Fang Jingji unhurriedly punched out with his left fist. The two people on the stage seemed rather strange at this moment. Because, their actions seemed completely unrelated to that of the another. Meng Yushu was employing his body movements to prepare to attack Fang Jingji. On the other hand, Fang Jingji stood alone on the stage in a horse stance, then, slowly pushed out with his left fist. What is he doing? Practicing kung fu? Or punching the air? What a joke, he thinks that by punching the air, he can win. Don't tell me Meng Yushu will still decide to bang onto his fist. When the examinees saw Fang Jingji's movements, they all began to ridicule. Nobody knew what Fang Jingji was doing. Because, Fang Jingji's movements were too slow, so slow that even if people didn't want to avoid this attack, it would still be rather impossible. Yet, just as the crowd felt that Fang Jingji's actions were too ridiculous, Meng Yushu suddenly slipped, then, Meng Yushu, initially drifting indefinitely on the stage, fell head over heels and his head slammed towards Fang Jingji's fist. Bang! A dull thud, then Meng Yushu's face was heavily punched by a fist. Everybody was instantly stunned. How is this possible? During their confusion, an even stranger scene appeared. Because, after Fang Jingji's fist contacted Meng Yushu's face, Meng Yushu's body traced a beautiful arc in the air like a shooting star. With a boom, he fell outside the stage. Below the stage, the examinees looked at the unconscious Meng Yushu and were instantly stunned. Chapter 73. Luck coming to an end. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations. What was this about? Nobody understood why Meng Yushu would slip, then, after slipping, just happened to smash into Fang Jingji's fist. The entire venue was silent. Everybody stared, stunned, at Fang Jingji, who was unhurriedly pulling back his fist. Defeated. Meng Yushu defeated. How did he get defeated? On the judging panel, the county head wearing an official robe's eyes turned around with shock. Staring at Fang Jingji standing on the stand, and then shifting gaze to the middle-aged scholar sitting by his side. He similarly didn't understand what had just transpired. On the other hand, meeting the county head's gaze, the middle-aged scholar also shook his head. His expression was the same as the county head, in absolute disbelief. I see. At this moment, Imperial Messenger Qin mumbled softly. What did Imperial Messenger see? The county head turned his head towards Imperial Messenger Qin. It can be said that I see, and also don't see. County Head Wang, look there. Imperial Messenger Qin pointed towards the right side of the stage in front of Fang Jingji as he spoke. Stone. County Head Wang stared, then was suddenly taken aback. You say, just now he. That's right, but, whether this stone was originally on the stage, or was thrown by him onto the stage, I don't know. Imperial Messenger Qin looked deep in thought. But this doesn't make sense. This is only the first round, the possibility of a stone appearing on top isn't large. Furthermore, even if there really was a stone, how could he be so sure that Meng Yushu would definitely step on that stone, and, be so sure that the position Meng Yushu would fall towards, would definitely be where he placed his fist? As the county head thought, things seemed even more impossible. But, the more impossible it seemed, the more shock he felt. Because, this was easy to say, but to really carry this out, it was insanely hard. I don't know, but he indeed did it. Didn't he? Imperial Messenger Qin shook his head. The county head didn't speak further. But when he shifted his gaze back towards Fang Jingji, a complicated expression appeared in his eyes. Indeed, as Imperial Messenger Qin said, no matter how it happened, Fang Jingji had really managed to do it. The gaze of the middle-aged scholar was at this moment fixated upon the small stone on the stage, then, looking at the unconscious Meng Yushu below the stage, an icy glow appeared in his eyes. The examinees naturally overheard the conversation at the judging panel and finally noticed the unwelcomed guest on the stage. Stone. A piece of stone. All of the examinees exchanged glances at one another, and were at a loss for words. Meng Yushu tripped over a stone, then coincidentally smashed onto Fang Jingji's fist, and then sent flying. This was the truth. But the truth was a little too inconceivable. The first round, Fang Jingji wins. Regaining his senses, the invigilator quickly announced Fang Jingji's win. But, below the stage, was nothing but silence. Because, none of the examinees were able to understand how something so coincidental could occur in this world. Coincidence. Yan Xiu's lips parted slightly, then, slowly shook his head. The golden-boned silver thread fan on his hands hurriedly fanned a few times, then gradually calmed down. Fang Jingji, isn't your luck a little too good? Li Huer and Meng Jiangshan stared at Fang Jingji, who walked down from the stage and returned back to his seat, their eyes filled with envy. Fang Jingji spitefully twitched his mouth. Faced with such a question, he indeed couldn't be bothered to reply. But, this expression when seen by Li Huer and Meng Yushu, seemed like he was powerless to dispute. Alright, no matter how good your luck is, it will finally end one day. Li Huer and Meng Yushu could only believe this. Afterwards, the competitions became rather dull. Most of it was a battle of brute strength, or using some weird tactics. Li Huer and Meng Jiangshan were somewhat bored, but, Fang Jingji watched with great interest. It was the simplest moves that consisted of the greatest imagination. For example, a man wearing a blue robe employed the move, rhinoceros gazing at the moon. Even though there was neither a rhinoceros nor a moon, the main point was the groin kick that followed right after, rhinoceros gazing at the moon. That move was rather incredible. Instantly causing his opponent to kneel over and beg for mercy. There is always something to learn from everyone. All along, Fang Jingji fought with a learning mentality. That was also why he allowed Meng Yushu to demonstrate two moves. Afterwards, Meng Yushu and Li Huer seemed to have rather bad luck. Because, being at the bottom of the theory examination, naturally they faced the attack of the Tempest. After shouting out, "Heaven killed me," Meng Jiangshan fell from the stage. His mouth was filled with mud and seemed battered and exhausted. On the other hand, Li Huer was rather brave and fierce, his fists carrying the sound of the wind, and in spite of the opponent causing him to be completely unable to fight back, he managed to push his opponent below the stage. I won, I won. Li Huer simply couldn't contain his happiness. But, if this was accompanied by two huge panda eyes, it became rather unsightly. Finally, the first round ended. Among the top three of the theory examination, Fang Jingji, as the top of the theory roll, defeated Meng Yushu and successfully entered the second while. On the other hand, Zheng Xinzhao's luck wasn't very good. Because, Li Bowei actually challenged him in the first round. Then, an incredible and outstanding battle unfolded. Each move was fatal and deadly, and every step was tense. Finally, Zheng Xinzhao finally lost. Unfortunately, he even suffered a heavy injury. From what it seemed like, Li Bowei seemed to be overly pressured by Zheng Xinzhao and almost fell off the stage. Then, flicking his sword, he just happened to accidentally cut Zheng Xinzhao's wrist. His meridians were instantly cut. This also meant that in the future, it would definitely extremely hard for Zheng Xinzhao to improve in the combat examination. But, this accident happened on the stage, and everybody had witnessed the situation that unfolded. Hence, nobody overly questioned Li Bowei's actions. Gong. The second round of the combat examination started. Fang Jingji's performance in the theory examination was incredible. No matter whether he won this round or not, he could still pass the law of Dao examination. However, this was not the case for Li Hue. He only managed to enter the second-class role in the theory examination, hence, needed to advance another round. What was different from the first round was that the fight wasn't determined by leader and follower anymore, and instead was decided based on drawing lots. After all, the method of choosing leader and follower was only appropriate to filter out people in the first round. Its main purpose was to use the fastest method to eliminate the ones people considered weak. Only after successfully filtering out the fish in troubled water could the real competition become even more wonderful. After lots were drawn, matched names very quickly appeared on the two roll stones. After which, Li Hue's expression turned rather ugly. Because, he knew the person whose name was matched with his, and moreover, he was extremely familiar with him. His name was Fang Jingji. Sigh, Brother Hue is right, indeed, my luck has finally come to an end. Fang Jingji looked at the Li Hue's dejected expression and sighed gloomily, his eyes filled with laughter. Chapter 74. A hurried goodbye. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations. Li Hue's expression was frozen, his two panda eyes blinked and looked towards the azure blue skies. He looked as grieved as a soldier leaving and not being able to return. Can you defeat me in a way that will allow me to keep my face? Even though Li Hue constantly mocked Fang Jingji during the theory examination, but in the combat examination, at least he knew himself well. How does Hue want it to be like? Fang Jingji smiled slightly. For example, we will first be locked in battle for around 20 bouts, then, with great difficulty, you defeat me. Li Hue thought for a while, and decided that this method saved him some face. All right. Fang Jingji generously nodded. When he saw Fang Jingji agree, Li Hue instantly smiled happily. Hurriedly turning his head around, he secretly shot a glance at Fang Jingji and an expression of a successful plan appeared on his face. Fang Jingji also smiled slightly, as if he hadn't noticed the expression on Li Hue's face at all. The competition went by rather quickly. Not too long later, it was Fang Jingji and Li Hue's turn to mount the stage. Due to Fang Jingji's stunning performance in the first round, he was naturally paid special attention during the second round. On the judging panel, the gazes of the three people were fixated on Fang Jingji. Below the stage, it was filled with examinees. On the spectator stand, Yan Xiu's gaze also shifted over. The only regret was that this round, Fang Jingji's opponent was indeed rather weak. After all, Li Hue's win in the first round was rather difficult. This was something that everybody had personally witnessed. Kill. Once the match started, Li Hue bravely and fiercely charged towards Fang Jingji, his two tough fists carrying the sound of the wind. At Fang Jingji's side, his movement was just as big, but compared to Li Huer's fist, his was indeed much smaller, and his body wasn't as stout and strong. But, under Fang Jingji's deliberate actions, the sound of the wind indeed wasn't soft. Boom boom boom. Two men, four fists, intensely collided into each other. Li Huer advanced, Fang Jingji retreated. Fang Jingji advanced, Li Huer retreated. Under the stage, as the examinees watched this intense battle, they were completely unable to understand what was happening. Why did the fight last so long? This isn't very right. Fang Jingji had defeated Meng Yushu. Why is he actually fighting so hard with this idiot? The three on the judging panel were also filled with shock at this moment. Li Huer's abilities was something they naturally were able to infer with one glance. From the first round of assessment, there was almost no suspense in this competition. Why would so many people pay attention to this? The biggest reason was that everyone wanted to know what kind of ability did Fang Jingji reach. But now, they had seen his abilities, but, this intense fight between the two, and being evenly matched, what was this about? With Li Huer's abilities. The crowd absolutely couldn't understand this. Fang Jingji's first round was initially a competition regarded to be without suspense, yet Meng Yushu lost. The second round, it was still a competition regarded to be without suspense, but the difference was that Fang Jingji was so strong that there would be no doubt about this win. Yet, the two were fighting so intensely, just like they were equally matched. He ha he. Li Huer and Fang Jingji fought intensely on stage, yet below the stage, nobody cheered. All of them stared blankly at the two, thinking that something was amiss. Fang Jingji was someone who kept his words. Since he had agreed to allow Li Huer to lose with face, naturally he had to care about their relationship, having grown up together ever since they were babies. Hence, he didn't rush at all. Just like that, the two fought with punches and kicks on the stage for more than a quarter of an hour, and like before, didn't even look like it was about to end. Giving chance. Yan Xiu's lips moved again, and said two words. Then, he looked at Fang Jingji's and Li Huer's attires and seemed to have understood something. Fang Jingji and Li Huer continued to fight. Finally, Li Huer's eyes slowly lit up. Because, he had already forced Fang Jingji to a corner of the stage. Furthermore, it seemed from Fang Jingji's expression that he didn't realize that at all. An opportunity. Li Huer felt a sense of delight within, and without caring about anything else, lowered his body into a deep squat. Then, his two arms reached out and pounced towards Fang Jingji. Tiger pouncing on the prey. Li Huer had full confidence in this move, because it was personally taught to him by Li Zhuangshi. Its purpose was to pounce onto a powerful opponent and fall down the stage, hence, most probably, the opponent would definitely land before him. Fang Jingji, I apologize. Anyway, you have already passed the law of Dao examination. Looking at Fang Jingji standing on one corner of the stage, Li Huer simply couldn't contain the smile on his face anymore. He seemed to have already felt the glory and success right in front of his eyes. Below the stage, the crowd of examinees witnessed this scene, their mouths agape in shock. Did this mean that this was the end of Fang Jingji? Plop. A dull thud sounded out from below the stage. Li Huer's current posture was beautiful. Two fists reaching out towards the front, and two legs bent at an angle, lying face down on the floor. It had to be said that the change in his movements was indeed extremely strange. In a flash, the tiger pouncing on the prey turned into eating dog feces, and the reason that led to this was. Unfortunately, Fang Jingji suddenly slanted his body. And very unfortunately, gave Li Huer's but a kick. Just like that, an evenly matched battle ended. Li Huer raised his head. Spitting out the mud from his mouth, his expression was queer. What happened? He had clearly seen that he was about to embrace Fang Jingji. Why did he suddenly appear behind him? Where was the face they agreed upon? The sudden situation didn't give him any face at all. Based on Fang Jingji's battle in the second round, the crowd was just as stunned as the first round. The difference was that the process wasn't quite the same. Having passed 2 rounds, it could almost be confirmed that Fang Jingji's ranking would land him into the first-class role. Once they thought of this, the crowd began to look at Fang Jingji differently. Even though these 2 rounds of fights in the combat examination left everybody speechless. Theory examination role champion, combat examination first-class role, not bad. At this moment, County Head Wang also began to ponder, and looked at Fang Jingji with some admiration. This time, Imperial Messenger Qin didn't speak, and calmly lifted up the cup in front of him and sipped on his tea. The middle-aged scholar on the other hand turned his head to one side and huffed lightly. The third round also employed the drawing lots method. Fang Jingji's opponent was a man who wielded a spear, around the age of 30 with a few pockmarks on his face. He was very evidently an old-timer in the county examination. Once he mounted the stage, he showed his rich experience. Instead of clashing with Fang Jingji directly, he chose to do so indirectly. On the other hand, Fang Jingji didn't rush, and with a relaxed expression on his face, employed the tactic of, if the enemy doesn't move, I won't move, and quietly watched on. Very unfortunately, after circling Fang Jingji twice, he accidentally tripped and amazingly fell off the stage. The fourth and fifth round after that, Fang Jingji's luck was just as extreme, every opponent falling off the stage due to his own blunders. On the other hand, Fang Jingji helplessly spread open his hands, expressing his innocence. Then, after rounds and rounds of innocence, the examinees shockingly realized a serious problem. Fang Jingji seemed to have reached the finals. His opponent wasn't anybody else but the third in the theory examination, Li Bowie. The crowd released a sigh of relief. Fang Jingji's luck seems like it is finally going to end. After all, Li Bowie's performance in the combat examination was completely different from Fang Jingji, displaying true strength and power the entire time, and even defeated the second in the theory examination. Start. The invigilator gave off the order to start. Please. Li Hua very gracefully gave a beckoning sign towards Fang Jingji. Please. Fang Jingji similarly mimicked Li Bowie's actions. Li Bowie finally smiled, but the smile on his mouth was unusually cold, as if it came from hell, bringing along an air of chilliness. 5 days ago, after a hurried goodbye under the moonlit night, I longed to see you again. Chapter 75. Divine Seal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations. Then. Fang Jingji nodded as he smiled. Why don't you look shocked at all? Li Bowie thought that Fang Jingji's expression would change greatly after expressing this. But, it seemed like it had failed quite badly. Am I supposed to be shocked? Do you understand my main point? I said me. Li Bowie emphasized. Then. Li Bowie stared at Fang Jingji, who wore an innocent look on his face and felt a deep sense of defeat. Then, his tone suddenly changed, like a 1,000-year-old glacier. Die. In a flash, Li Bowie charged towards Fang Jingji, the sword in his hands pointing towards Fang Jingji's throat. His speed was fast as lightning, and a faint glow radiated from the top of his blade. This is the ability Li Bowie has been hiding. County Head Wang quickly stood up. Something is wrong. Imperial Messenger Qin similarly realized something. Li Bowie and I are both from the Qinfeng Academy, and was already very close to accessing Dao. Wait. Something is really wrong. It is not possible for Li Bowie to have such power. The middle-aged scholar instinctively waited to defend Li Bowie, but after seeing Li Bowie's movements clearly, he was completely stunned. Because the ability Li Bowie was displaying now had long exceeded that of Meng Yushu who accessed Dao a year ago. From what the Qinfeng Academy knew, Li Bowie was still a slight bit away from accessing Dao, and it was impossible for him to improve by so much within a few days. At the stage, in a blink of an eye, Li Bowi's sword was an inch away from Fang Jingji's throat. Furthermore, the sword's power didn't seem to have the intention of being restrained, instead, the icy glow expanded outwards. If this stab was successfully, it would definitely kill in one blow. It was too sinister and deadly. Under the stage, the examinees stared at Li Bowi's attack, their mouths agape in shock. It was too fast, so fast that people simply couldn't react. If Li Bowi's previous performance caused people to feel that he was powerful, then now. This can only be described by horror. Whoosh! Two figures closed the distance between them. Immediately after, a dull sound boomed from the stage, then the two figures quickly shot apart. Ha ha ha! Who would have thought? 15 years of age yet reaching such a level. Talent, a true talent. Even more talented than what I thought. Li Bowi stretched his shoulders, the icy glow in his eyes expanding. You aren't too bad either. Fang Jingji also gave a sincere praise. Shaking his palms, the shards of ice stuck to it fell to the ground. What is even more worthy of celebrating is that today will be the day of your death. When Li Bowi finished his words, the air in the entire stage became a lot colder. Brandishing the sword on his hands, a layer of translucent ice crystals instantly appeared on his sword. At the same time, a dense white mist emanated from his body. Divine Seal. Li Bowi had reached Divine Seal. County Head Wang's eyes instantly widened. He simply couldn't believe that a person who reached the Divine Seal state could appear in the county examinations. After accessing Tao, man could begin to understand all creation, but this required a process. For example, even though Meng Yushu accessed Tao for a year, he still couldn't reach the Divine Seal state, and could only rely on the Tao Seal to force his powers to reach the abilities of the Divine Seal early stage. But that was only based on power. If he really met with someone who reached the Divine Seal early state, he would no doubt be defeated. Because, the good thing about this was that one's powers would increase. However, the bad thing was that before every move, he had to first display the Tao Seal to prepare. But if one reached the Divine Seal, then everything would be different. The Divine Seal represented that one completely sealed a form of all creation into one's body, hence when employing it, it wouldn't require the assistance of any Tao Seal at all. In order to achieve this, one required chance and understanding. Because, in order to seal all creation into one's body, this represented that one's understanding of the Tao of all creation had already reached an extremely high level. For example, how it was made, how it changed, its different properties, how to destroy it. Everything was in one's grasp. It might not even be as simple as Divine Seal. Imperial Messenger Qin opened his mouth as well. From what was happening on the stage, Li Bowi borrowed the help of cold air, freezing into ice crystals and giving off an icy mist. Just from this point alone, one could infer that he already wasn't at the early stage of Divine Seal anymore. As of which level he had reached, it was currently unable to be determined. This Li Bowi, how could he conceal himself so much? The middle-aged scholar sighed deeply. Under the stage, the examinees were completely stunned at this moment. Li Bowi had actually reached Divine Seal. Furthermore, compared to the Divine Seal late stage, it seemed to be even higher. How could this not cause people to be shocked? Die. Li Bowi completely ignored the crowd's shock, as if he had already expected all of these to happen. Then, he moved again. Completely enveloped in a white, icy mist, he charged towards Fang Jingji. Isn't it just a little bit of cold air? Fang Jingji twitched his mouth in disdain. Then, his body also gave off a dense white mist. Moreover, compared to Li Bowi's mist, it was even thicker. Divine. Divine Seal. Fang Jingji He also reached Divine Seal. Instantly, none of the examinees were able to come to their senses. If the fact that Li Boyi had achieved Divine Seal was a shocking matter, then Fang Jingji's sudden attainment of Divine Seal was something people simply couldn't imagine. It was just a county examination of the law of Dao examination. Those who accessed Dao could directly skip this and participate in the capital examinations. 2 people who reached Divine Seal coming here to compete. Wasn't this simply bullying? As the examinees were filled with shock, 2 balls of white, icy mist clashed into each other. Then, an intense clashing sound sounded out from within the white mist. After which, Li Boyi's body flew out from the white mist, like a meteor flying through the skies, slammed into the ground with a boom. The white mist gradually dispersed. Fang Jingji quietly stood on the stage and looked at Li Boyi lying on the ground. Wow! In an instant, all the examinees were roused. All their doubts were finally resolved. So what if Fang Jingji could defeat Meng Yushu? Even a Divine Seal person like Li Boyi was defeated. That meant that Fang Jingji possessed true power. How powerful! I never thought that he had actually reached Divine Seal. A person who had never entered the Hall of Dao, relying solely on self-study. Achieving World Champion in the theory examinations, and even reaching Divine Seal. Isn't this simply unthinkable? The examinees discussed spiritedly. On the spectator stand, Li Huer and Meng Jiangshan glanced at one another, their faces filled with absolute shock. Fang Jingji reached Divine Seal. At this moment, Imperial Messenger Qin also stood up. Looking at Fang Jingji standing on the stage, he looked as if it had seen a perfectly beautiful piece of unpolished jade. Then, just as everybody's gaze were completely fixated on Fang Jingji's body. Sitting at the spectator stand, Yan Xiu stood up suddenly. His ice-cold expression now seemed to have become rather anxious. Beware! Boom! Just as Yan Xiu's words landed, a gigantic roar sounded out from the stage. An immense destructive force instantly caused the entire stage to shake wildly. Zoom zoom zoom. Broken pieces of rocks and pebbles flew out from the stage like knives, instantly piercing bloody holes into the bodies of the examinees below. Ah 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 ah. The examinees below the stage instantly cried out in pain. On the stage at this moment, dust flew everywhere. It was simply impossible to discern what was happening inside, only a faint blue glow of light blinked in and out of the cloud of dust. Chapter 76. Demon Eye. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations. After an instant, the dust dispersed. A youth wearing a white brocade robe appeared, with an icy glint in his eyes. The sword on his hand impaled itself into the ground, and a layer of ice crystals covered the blade of his sword. Below his feet, there was a humongous crack in the sound. The strangest thing was, a portion of skin had been peeled off his face, revealing a crystal dot-like, faint blue gem on his forehead. Within the gem, there was a faint flow of light, just like an eye. I never thought that having hidden within the human world for 5 years, I have been exposed today. As the youth spoke, his gaze swept across the crowd below the stage, with a demonic air around him. Ah! As the gaze of the youth swept across the crowd below the stage, the examinees instantly began to cry out. The expressions of 3 people at the judging panel also changed suddenly. At this moment, they naturally knew the true identity of the youth on the stage, and knew well what the gem on the youth's forehead stood for. The demon race. County Head Wang's face was a deathly shade of white. He never thought that the demon race would be able to sneak into the law of Dao examination. Surround him, don't let him run away. After identifying the youth, the middle-aged scholar quickly shouted towards the surrounding guards. Audacious demon race, you dare destroy the talents of our human race. Die. Imperial Messenger Qin looked at the huge gaping hole on the stage and carried a grieved expression on his face. All these years, the appearance of the demon race in the law of Tao examination wasn't something that had never happened. Their goal was simple: nip the problem in the bud by eliminating the weak and young talents of the human race, hindering the growth of the human race from its roots. Except, the appearance of the demon race in the county examination, and even forced to reveal its identity, this was indeed rare. Imperial Messenger Qin clenched his fists and prepared to act. Right at this moment, a snap sound came from within the crack on the stage. Then, a slender hand reached out from within the crack. It grabbed onto the legs of the demon youth, whose face was still covered halfway with Li Bowi's human skin. Faced with this sudden attack, the demon youth, who was already preparing to unleash his killing fury, was completely stunned. An immense shock appeared from within his eyes. Still alive? How can he be still alive? And still hiding beneath the ground? Boom! A loud sound boomed. The demon youth was instantly pulled below the ground by the hand. Then, the blood-curdling sound of bones breaking sounded out from below the ground. Snap, snap. Bang. After a wave of the sound of bones breaking, a figure leapt out gracefully from the crack, then gently landed onto the ground. A coarse blue robe danced in the gentle wind. Such bad luck, I accidentally tore my shirt. Does this count as an industrial injury? Fang Jingji patted off the mud from his body, then stared at the tear in his robe and sighed deeply. Imperial Messenger Qin's lips twitched, but didn't speak. His fist clenched even tighter. He actually killed a demon. How did he do that? Imperial Messenger Qin's heart was filled with doubt. Because every single demon possessed the power of a human who accessed Tao ever since they were born. As they grew older, the abilities of a demon would also grow rapidly. From that attack just now, the destruction force of this demon youth was indeed not weak. How is this possible? Fang Jingji only reached the divine seal state. Could it be that this demon only reached the divine seal state? Or was Fang Jingji's true abilities even stronger than that he showed? If it was the latter. When Imperial Messenger Qin thought of this, he instantly rejected this thought. Impossible. A 15-year-old youth without a strong family background, and never having studied in a hall of Tao, being able to reach the divine seal state just by self-studying was already the best of talents. How could he reach the state stronger than that of divine seal, the star conglomerate state? In the entire Great Xia dynasty, not even mentioning those below 15 years old, even the amount of people who managed to reach the star conglomerate state below the age of 18 amounted to no more than 100. Could it be Yan Xiu? Imperial Messenger Qin's gaze quickly noticed Yan Xiu, who had stood up from the spectator stand. Then, he recalled Yan Xiu's voice previously, thought for a while, and finally understood. If Yan Xiu assisted from behind the scenes, then this incident could be explained. As Imperial Messenger Qin was intensely trying to reason in his heart, the crowd of examinees below the stage was completely stunned by what had just transpired. The demon race. A strong species completely different from the human race. Fang Jingji managed to kill him. How is it possible that he could kill a demon? Why was the first thing he cared about after killing the demon his clothes? Everyone had an urge to kneel down after hearing Fang Jingji's words just now. Could he not be so stingy? Fang Jingji killed a demon. Li Hure and Meng Jiangshan glanced at one another, their eyes filled with complete shock. They understood that from now onwards, the path Fang Jingji would walk was going to be completely different from theirs. Killing a demon wasn't something an average person could do. Every person who was able to kill a demon would be emphasized upon and nurtured by the dynasty, becoming a person deserving of people's respect. At this moment, Imperial Messenger Qin also moved. In one leap, he stood on top of the stage. Then, lowering his head to look at the demon within the cracks, whose face was the color of golden paper, he nodded lightly. Still alive. This is a good thing. When Yan Xiu saw Imperial Messenger Qin mount the stage, he also gracefully made his way onto the stage. But, he didn't pay any attention to the demon youth, and instead fixated his gaze upon Fang Zhengji. I can give you a set of clothes. Yan Xiu opened his mouth. When the examinees below the stage heard Yan Xiu's words, they instantly felt the urge to kneel down again. Wasn't the main point here about Fang Zhengji killing the demon? Why was Yan Xiu, like Fang Zhengji, first concerned about clothes? Alright. When Fang Zhengji heard this, he instantly smiled. Among the examinees, there were already people kneeling on the floor. It seemed that the thought process of these two people in front of them wasn't something normal people could understand. Imperial Messenger Qin's expression was also just as queer. But, considering Yan Xiu's social status, he forced down the doubt in his heart. This time, Fang Zhengji and Yan Xiu's contributions in killing the demon cannot go unnoticed. Imperial Messenger Qin thought for a while, and decided that such a wording would be more appropriate. I didn't contribute at all. Yan Xiu replied indifferently. Imperial Messenger Qin smiled. He often heard people say that Yan Xiu's personality was too icily arrogant. Today's encounter confirmed this fact, hence he didn't speak further. You say he is a demon. Fang Zhengji seemed to have realized something afterwards. Oh. That's right. Imperial Messenger Qin was taken aback. He looks rather similar to us. At this moment, Fang Zhengji became rather curious, his jet-black eyes stared at the demon within the crack. On the forehead of every demon is a natural, demon eye. This is what they use to communicate with heaven, earth and nature, and build their strength. Imperial Messenger Qin explained. Oh, I see. Fang Zhengji nodded. Reaching into the crack, with a whoosh, he pulled out the demon youth from within the crack. Ah! This movement instantly alarmed Imperial Messenger Qin and the surrounding examinees. This guy was still alive. This demon eye seems not too shabby, I wonder how much I can sell it for if I dig it out. Fang Zhengji didn't bother paying any attention to the crowd's shock and felt about the demon eye on the demon youth. It was rather cold. Chapter 77. Heaven Dao Pavilion. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations. How much can the demon eye sell for? Towards Fang Zhengji's thought process, the crowd felt like they had seen a vulgar piece of gold embedded in an extremely precious gem. Only able to sigh, fabricating objects and messing with people. Of course, in the end, Fang Zhengji also wasn't able to dig out the demon eye of the demon youth as a souvenir. After all, from the dynasty's point of view, they had already caught a live culprit with great difficulty. Imperial Messenger Qin wouldn't bear to stand by the side and let Fang Zhengji kill him. The demon eye was the source of the demon's strength, and also the forbidden land of life. The law of Dao examinations had ended. Then, everybody finally managed to react. Fang Zhengji seemed to have achieved the combat examination role champion. This result was something the crowd had never even considered, but nobody dared to argue against this result. A person who had already reached the divine seal state attaining the role champion of the county law of Dao examinations combat examination simply wasn't something debatable. But, what the crowd couldn't understand was how did a person who didn't ever enter the hall of Dao reach divine seal? Fang Zhengji is the role champion of the law of Dao examinations combat examination, and also the role champion of the theory examination. Imperial Messenger Qin's voice echoed about the entire combat arena of the Qingfeng Academy. Double role champion. At this moment, Li Huer and Meng Jiangshan only wanted to find a hole to bury themselves in. The difference between them and Fang Zhengji was really too big. After which, County Head Wang, as the official of the Huaiyan County, also expressed his congratulations towards Fang Zhengji. Everything seemed like a matter of course. But the examinees at the venue felt like they were deep inside a dream. From the start to the end, they were unable to believe that this initially despised youth was able to quietly break the record of the Huaiyan County, which hadn't been broken in over 30 years. Double role champion. There were people who excelled at theory, and people who excelled in combat. But to be the master of pen and sword, this was exceedingly rare. Even in a bustling ancient city like the Huaiyan County, this hadn't appeared in dozens of years. 3 days later, the wind gently blew in this ancient city of Huaiyan. But, regardless whether it was a passer-by, or scholars leaving leisurely, everybody was discussing the miracle that happened in this law of Dao examination. Normally, a county examination wouldn't receive much attention. But, this law of Dao examination held in the Huaiyan County spread like a wild gust of wind across the entire northern desert, even to the imperial capital. Because it was too unbelievable. A person who had never entered the Hall of Dao, attaining the role champion in the theory examination, and even defeating a demon during the theory examination, becoming the double role champion of both the theory examination role and the combat examination role. This was initially a story deserving of praise, to be passed along the streets and alleys. But, as long as scholars and literary people who had contributed in the arts heard the two words Fangzhengji, they revealed an expression of implacable hatred and misery. The reason was because Fangzhengji had polluted the purest thing in their hearts. He was a disgraceful and cultured daredevil who forcefully unveiled Yun Qingwu's veil. A lecher. For such people to sing praises, no matter how much money was involved, it was still difficult. Every dynasty always had something glorifying. For example, in the Great Xia dynasty, ever since the country was formed, a phrase circulated among the people. 1 pavilion, 4 sages, 13 constabularies. In the distant mountain peak that rose through the clouds in the northern desert, in front of the Golden Hall, the two words Heaven Dao was like a divine spirit that overlooked all living things, emanating a strong sense of dignity. The Heaven Dao Pavilion, the place where every scholar in the Great Xia dynasty would give their lives to enter. And at this moment, in the rear court of the Heaven Dao Pavilion, within a quiet garden, a lady wearing a pink muslin dress with a pair of jet-black eyes seated, gazing at the sand table placed in front of her. The lady's eyes were extremely bright, as if millions of stars were twinkling within. It was like the Milky Way, and also like a rippling jade pool. Her hair was jet-black, like a waterfall, falling to her waists. There were no golden hairpins nor jade ornaments decorating her hair, except for a freshly picked tree peony diagonally tucked into her hair, which was delicate and brightly colored. Her long eyebrows trembled slightly, and a faint sparkle radiated from her flawless fair skin. Her soft lips were as tender and lovely as a petal. At her waist was a snow-white fur belt, perfectly bringing out the lady's exquisite figure. If people passed by, they would definitely sigh. This lady belonged to heaven, and was almost impossible to meet in the mortal world. Even though the lady's features still seemed rather young and tender, but her powerful temperament faintly emanated from her body. Double role champion. The lady's lips parted slightly, with a voice that was as clear as a skylark. After not meeting for 8 years, the first information I received was that he had attained the double role champion. Looks like this little bastard's 8 years weren't wasted. But what is this incident of forcefully unveiling Yun Qingwu's veil at the 100-flower gathering about? His personality still hadn't changed. Next, this little bastard should be going to the River of Trust Capital to participate in the capital examinations. Capital examinations. I believe the River of Trust Capital alone actually won't be able to stop him. Alright, seeing that this little bastard had worked hard, I will give him a present. Present. Outside the garden, a lady dressed in a green dress instantly walked in. Prepare the writing materials, I'll write a letter to my Lord Father. Roger. While Fangzhengji's name was from the Huaiyan County, causing him to become a famous character, Fangzhengji was happily trying on clothes. Young Master Fang, this brocade clothes seems to match young Master's temperament perfectly. The shopkeeper fawned on Fangzhengji. Of course, the reason the shopkeeper would do this wasn't exactly very related to Fang Jingji himself. After all, merchants had their own merchant circles. But, if the person accompanying Fang Jingji was Yan Xiu, then things were completely different. I prefer robes. It's freer, and more elegant. Fang Jingji expressed his own opinion. Young Master Fang indeed has an eye for beauty. I just happen to have a valuable handmade robe that I kept preciously. Its texture is soft and has a new and original style. It is a perfect match with young Master Fang's free-spirited personality. The shopkeeper had owned the shop for dozens of years and the client had to be God himself. Very quickly, a dark blue robe was taken out. It was tender and silky, and its texture was extremely soft. Furthermore, the string used were all silver threads, and was indeed unusually elegant. Not bad. Fang Jingji nodded his head, satisfied. Are you participating in the capital examination in the River of Trust capital? Yan Xiu glanced at the strong bearded man, then shifted his gaze to Fang Jingji. Of course. Fang Jingji nodded. Then, let's meet at the capital examination. You are participating in the River of Trust capital examination as well. When Fang Jingji heard Yan Xiu's words, he became somewhat curious. He initially expected Yan Xiu to participate in the county examination, but didn't see him in the end. Yes. Yan Xiu nodded. Then can you attain role champion? Fang Jingji seemed rather regretful. Not necessarily. Yan Xiu shook his head. Alright, see you at the capital examination. Fang Jingji smiled. Capital examination. Yan Xiu. Who knows what the result would be? Chapter 78. The difference between North and South. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations. To Yan Xiu, Fang Jingji always had his own way of looking at things. Yan Xiu spoke very little, almost reaching the point where every word was gold. Furthermore, bounded by culture, abiding by etiquette, every word and action, every smile and fury, were determined by rules. Fang Jingji was different. He never bothered about these rules and viewpoints whenever he did things. Everything he did followed two words. Free spirit. He laughed as he pleased, ate as he pleased, the only thing he controlled was the happiness and anger in his heart. These two people should belong in two completely different worlds. But, Fang Jingji felt that Yan Xiu and him had something common deep in their blood. That was rebellion. Treating each word as gold, from an outsider's point of view, as a form of personality. However, after some careful thought, how was this not a form of rebellion against conventional thought? It was still a month away from the capital examination. The time seemed to be ample, but in reality, it was very rushed. After all, from the Huayan County to the River of Trust capital, even with wild galloping on horseback, it required at least half a month of time. As such, after passing the county examination, in order to conserve their time and energy, most examinees would directly make their way to the River of Trust capital. Fang Jingji felt about in his pockets for a few silver notes, and decided there would be time to make a trip back to the village, enjoy a meal at home, have a good sleep and then journey to the River of Trust capital. Anyway, he had his own horse, and could do as he pleased. As Fang Jingji rode the silver scale horse and wildly galloped back to the village, the congratulatory team had finally followed the path and arrived at the entrance of the southern mountain village. Previous village chief Meng Bai's hands trembled as he placed the cigar into his mouth. Staring at the congratulatory team passing by, he sighed deeply. After the county examination, Li Huer and Meng Jiangshan had returned to the village. As such, news of Fang Jingji attaining double role champion in the county law of Dao examination had landed like a bomb on the southern mountain village a day ago. The villagers of the southern mountain village finally exploded. They held back for 8 years, all for the only hope of the law of Dao examination. But now, A person who hadn't even entered the Hall of Tao, snatching away this hope the Southern Mountain Village held for 8 years just like that. Furthermore, this person was initially from the Southern Mountain Village. How could they not rage? How could they not rage? Double role champion. Even the villagers that lived far away from the county knew that this represented. That was supposed to be the glory of the Southern Mountain Village, but now, it was completely unrelated to the Southern Mountain Village at all. The raging villagers naturally needed somewhere for them to vent their frustration. Due to the Li family having Li Zhuangshi, who was on the way to the capital examination, they temporarily avoided this disaster. However, previous village chief Meng Bai couldn't escape. Then, many matters were raised and emotions were expressed. For example, when Fang Zhengji was able to draw out the rock formation illustration, why did some people still remain blind? Or, Fang Hao had contributed so selflessly to the Southern Mountain Village, why did some people still remain blind? In the end, the spearhead still pointed at the truth of the matter. Such a good child, all because he was smart, being exiled from the village by some certain blind people. As a result, these years, the Southern Mountain Village's situation got worse each day, while the Northern Mountain Village became more prosperous with each passing day. As he heard the tongues wagging in the discussions, and faced with such relentless accusations, Meng Bai only had one thought. Why hadn't he died yet? The congratulatory team finally mercilessly went past the village entrance of the Southern Mountain Village, and quickly made their way towards the Northern Mountain Village. Meng Bai suddenly felt that he couldn't hold back the emotions he had restrained for 8 years anymore. Wah! A mouthful of blood spurted out. Staring at the congratulatory team disappearing into the distance, Meng Bai's body began to tremble intensely. A few drops of tears appeared in his already turbid eyes, and the cigar in his hands fell to the ground. Howd, Zhengji, Xuelian. I regret so much, I am so sorry. I was blind, I was really blind. In contrast to the Southern Mountain Village, 2 rows of people had already been neatly queuing at the entrance of the Northern Mountain Village. Village Chief Zhang Yangping rubbed his hands intensely, and stood at the front of the row with a face filled with anticipation. Beside him also stood Fang Hao and Qin Xuelian. Fang Hao's face was filled with a silly smile, while Qin Xuelian seemed rather anxious. This is indeed impressive. I heard Fang Zhengji attained double role champion. A double role champion hadn't appeared in the Huaiyan County for dozens of years. That's right, I knew this child has potential the second I set my eyes on him. When he decided to participate in the Law of Tao examination, I was the first one to support him. Support. I remember that you were saying, if Fang Zhengji really could pass the Law of Tao examination, you will finish eating the entire patch of pumpkin you owned. What nonsense. I am famous for my accuracy in reading people. Cough cough. What I said was, if Fang Zhengji could pass the Law of Tao examination, I will donate the entire patch of pumpkins I own to the village for a celebratory feast. I see. What is a double role champion? A 5-year-old boy biting on a chicken leg, his mouth filled with oil, gazed at the woman, her arms akimbo, in front of him with wide eyes. This double role champion is something only a very powerful character can become. When I grow up, I also want to become a double role champion. As the villagers discussed spiritedly, a group of black dots began to slowly appear in the distance. Gradually, the black dots grew bigger, and the red silk clothes and black official robes of the congratulatory team began to appear. It's here, it's finally here. Quick, let's go. Zhang Yangping instantly became excited. Ever since they received news of Fang Zhengji attaining double role champion from the Northern Mountain Village, he had been standing guard at the village entrance with the villagers. Double role champion, this was definitely the happiest occasion ever since the beginning of the Northern Mountain Village. Not only the Northern Mountain Village, even villages from all around sent their congratulations. Even the village head of a few villagers specially discussed with Zhang Yangping about forming an alliance. Good news. As the congratulatory team arrived at the village entrance, they began to announce. Congratulations Fang Jingji of the Northern Mountain Village, topping the Huaiyan County Law of Dao examinations. Theory Examination Role Champion, Combat Examination Role Champion, 2 role champions altogether, becoming the double role champion. The leading congratulatory official's voice echoed about the entire village. When they heard this, the villagers finally exploded in excitement. Double role champion. He is really the double role champion. Even though the villagers had already known this beforehand, but to be able to personally hear the congratulatory official's announcement was a completely different feeling altogether. The huge red banner was passed from the congratulatory official's hands into village chief Zhang Yangping's hands. To be able to produce a double role official, the future of this village would definitely not be neglected anymore. Gazing at the red banner on his hands trembled in excitement. Double role champion. A village that didn't even contain a hall of Dao actually producing a double role champion. How glorifying and moving was this? Sister Xuelian, hold on to this red banner, tomorrow. Tomorrow, we will hang it inside the village ancestral hall. Finally, our Northern Mountain Village has produced a great character. The rim of Zhang Yangping's eyes were already moist, gingerly passing the red banner to Qin Xuelian's hands as he spoke. Qin Xuelian received the red banner, and slowly opened it. These few years, Fang Jingji had taught her to read. Hence, as she saw the 2 words, Fang Jingji, in the middle of the red banner, a few pearly drops of tears finally flowed down her cheeks. My son. My Jingji. Is really a double role champion. Chapter 79. Ambitious. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations, Mother of my child. Fang Hao's remaining hand tightly gripped onto Qin Xuelian. This iron man, this man who had previously contributed selflessly, finally also filled with tears today. 8 years ago, it was all because of the law of Dao examination, all because the Li family was the biggest hope of the Southern Mountain Village. The 3 members of the Fang family were mercilessly exiled from the Southern Mountain Village. 8 years later, his own son had become the double role champion of the county law of Dao examination. All feelings of being wronged had disappeared, the only thing that remained was pure pride. Fang Hao gazed at the direction of the Southern Mountain Village and instinctively straightened his back, as if saying, "Look, my son didn't enter the Hall of Dao, but my son also passed the law of Dao examination. Furthermore, he is still the double role champion." This day, the Northern Mountain Village was bound to celebrate. Every villager in the village busied themselves in a patch of laughter and happiness. Those who cooked, those who laid out the cutleries, laid them out. On the village square, the faces of both the old and the young were filled with joy and happiness. When Fang Jingji returned to the village, it just happened to be when the feast started. Hence, as he shouted happily at the village entrance, "I, Fang Jingji, have returned," other than the replies of a few birds, there was nothing else. Everybody was gathered at the village square, eating and drinking. Who would stupidly stand guard at the village entrance? Fang Jingji was rather gloomy. He had attained the double role champion, by right the news should have already reached the village, why did nobody welcome him when he entered the village? Even more frustrating, he didn't even manage to see the shadow of the congratulatory team. This is indeed a huge failure. After some pondering, Fang Jingji finally decided that his skin wasn't thick enough to reach the point of shouting, "I am the double role champion, I am back, quick come and welcome me." Hence, he could only miserably ride the silver scale horse home alone. Then, Fang Jingji became even gloomier. His house was dark and unlit, even the lamp wasn't lighted. Don't tell me they had already slept so early. As he thought, a wave of laughter seemed to come from not too far away. Listening closely, he realized that he came from the direction of the village square. Could they all be dancing at the village square? Alright, I'll go take a look. Fang Zhengji secured the silver scale horse, and groped his way towards the village square in the dark. No too long later, he saw that the entire village square was filled with people. Every single villager, no matter old or young, were chatting spiritedly, eating and drinking around the tables. Everybody wore an expression of joy, but not a single person noticed Fang Zhengji in the dark. Ha! There is food. Fang Zhengji didn't fuss over this. When he saw the platters of dishes on the table, his eyes instantly lit up. Sweeping his gaze across the square, he saw Fang Hao and Qin Shuoyan sitting at the table in the center of the village square. Fang Hao seemed very happily, and his face was flushed red from drinking. Qin Shuoyan seemed to change her usual stance. Mysteriously, she didn't stop him and instead picked out dishes for Fang Hao. When he saw his parents, Fang Zhengji directly made his way over to the table in the center. As he walked, he passed by exactly 5 to 6 tables. Finally, a drunken old man saw Fang Zhengji passing by, and he was instantly taken aback. Rubbing his eyes furiously, he seemed to be in complete disbelief. Why does it look like Zhengji is back? Old man Li, did you drink too much? After passing the county examination, Zhengji will go to the River of Trust capital to participate in the capital examination. How can he return? Quick! Quick, drink! That's right. The old man thought for a while and agreed. Preparing for the capital examination was such an important matter. Why would Fang Zhengji return? Fang Zhengji didn't hear the discussion going on around him, and immediately went to Fang Hao's side. Plopping down on the seat, he then picked up his chopsticks and quickly picked up a big green furred rabbit leg from the middle of the table into his mouth. Indeed, it still has the taste of the village's roasted meat. Fang Zhengji spoke as he ate. Definitely. Not mentioning other things, but the most famous thing in our northern mountain village is this roasted meat. The ingredients are personally prepared by Fang Zhengji. Zhang Yangping instantly boasted as he drank. Thank you Uncle Yangping for your praise. Fang Zhengji drank a mouthful of wine. You're welcome. Ha! Uncle Yangping. Ah! Fang Zhengji. Zhang Yangping casually waved his hands, then, turning around, his entire body sprang up from the chair. Zheng. Zhengji. At the moment, Qin Shuoyan also noticed Fang Zhengji, who was chewing on the rabbit leg, her face filled with disbelief. Mom, I have returned to stay 2 days, do you have a very surprised and happy feeling? Fang Zhengji smiled and casually acted like a spoiled child towards Qin Shuoyan. When Fang Zhengji smiled casually, the entire village square suddenly became silent. All the villagers stared with their eyes wide open, staring at Fang Zhengji eating the roasted meat at the table, as if they had seen a monster. A double-role champion who was supposed to be making his way towards the capital law of Dao examination. Returned to the village. The villagers were all filled with disbelief, but, after a moment of shock, the entire crowd became filled with passion. No matter what, Fang Zhengji's return was definitely a happy occasion. Ah, Fang Zhengji really returned. Fang Zhengji is back. It's really Fang Zhengji. All the villagers instantly stood up and one by one began to surround him. A few villagers were still chewing on bones, and couldn't even speak clearly. Among them, the happiest person was Qin Shuoyan. When she saw Fang Zhengji clearly, she couldn't contain herself any further and tears flowed down her cheeks. In one swift motion, she hugged Fang Zhengji, as well as the mouthful of oil on his mouth, very tightly, with no intention of letting go. Mum. Feeling the warmth of Qin Shuoyan's embrace, Fang Zhengji could only very tediously swallow the roasted meat in his mouth. Coming home to stay 2 days is good too, your mum can make you some delicious food, ahaha. Fang Hao looked at Fang Zhengji and smiled happily, but the rims of his eyes were still somewhat moistened. After the pleasant surprise, the villagers began to ask spiritedly. Towards the law of Tao examination, they bore a curious attitude. After all, to an average villager, they would never have the opportunity to participate in the examination in their lifetime. As such, they began to ask, what were the questions in the law of Tao theory examination, or, whether it was hard, or, can people eat inside the examination venue, etc. All kinds of odd questions of every description. Fang Jingji on the other hand didn't mind at all, and earnestly replied them. After the villagers had more or less finished their questions, Zhang Yangping spoke. Jingji, even though you have attained the double role champion this time, but don't give yourself too much stress in the capital examination. That's right, I heard that the county examination is only the doorstep, only if one passes the capital examination can he become a true great character, and be rewarded by the dynasty. Another villager added. Yes, Fang Jingji, after all, you had never studied in the Hall of Tao before. You are still young, don't worry, we are all proud of you passing the county examination this time. If you didn't perform well in the capital examination, our entire village will still support you, waiting a few more years before taking another examination is still alright. Zhang Yangping continued. Your uncle Yangping is right, no matter what, you have already taken the first step. Next time, your uncle Yangping will definitely support you. This river of trust capital examination, you just have to do your best, don't give yourself too much stress. Your mental well-being is very important. Fang Hao nodded at one side. Fang Jingji understood, Zhang Yangping and his dad saying such things probably meant that they were worried that he would give himself too much pressure. It felt like what modern parents said when they sent their children into the examinations, don't stress, just do your best, passing or not isn't important. I feel that this time's capital examination, I can attain double role champion once again. Fang Jingji smiled gently, filled with confidence. Ha ha ha. When the surrounding villagers heard Fang Jingji's words, they instantly laughed. There wasn't any ill intention, just a very happy laughter. Good child, ambitious. Yes, having ambition is a good thing, but don't set your target too high. Double role champion of the capital examination, seems like the river of trust capital hasn't produced one in over 100 years. Haha, this child Jingji is kidding, you actually took his words seriously. The villagers' laughter was filled with goodwill. Nobody took Fang Jingji's words seriously. The county examination was passed by Li Zhuangshi of the southern mountain village 6 years ago, but at the capital examination, he hadn't even passed the first round once. Chapter 80. Serene Ink Pond. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Sparrow Translations Editor. Sparrow Translations. 2 days later, Fang Jingji prepared to journey to the River of Trust capital to participate in the capital examination. Compared to the previously time when he left quietly, this time, when they heard the news that Fang Jingji was leaving, the entire village rushed over in the early morning, stuffing food and drinks of all kinds into Fang Jingji's bag. Jingji, don't worry. You have the village to take care of you, it doesn't matter whether you pass the capital examination. Whatever double role champion, don't think too much, just do your best. Yes. What's important is that you do your best. You are young and still have many years ahead of you. Qin Shuilian swept her gaze across the chatty villagers, then, placed the bundle she wrapped onto the silver scale horse and walked in front of Fang Jingji. Jingji, do your best. Even if you don't pass, don't feel embarrassed. Is that clear? Fang Jingji was rather gloomy. He had already attained double role champion, why didn't his own mother believe in him? He was her blood son. But, he instantly understood. Just like the first time he went hunting on the mountain, Qin Shuilian didn't expect him to be able to hunt something. All she wanted the word, safety, hence, she didn't want Fang Jingji to have any stress at all. Maybe, this was the true love a mother showed to her son, a selfless love. Jingji, take care on the way. Fang Hao stood beside the silver scale horse and fed the horse feed into the horse's mouth, and used his remaining hand to caress the silver scale horse. His expression was that of heavy reluctance and unwillingness to let go. A father, no matter how reluctant he was, cannot reveal it. Maybe, Fong Hao was someone like that. He would rather express his unwillingness to the silver scale horse. After bidding goodbye to the villagers, he was stopped once again at the village entrance by Zhang Yangping. Take these pieces of silver, you would definitely have to spend some along the way, don't be too prudent. Zhang Yangping threw over a bulging wallet. Fang Zhengji didn't reject it. Even though he still had 100-tael silver note in his pocket, but this wallet represented the hope Zhang Yangping had in him. Thank you, Uncle Yangping. Fang Zhengji expressed his thanks. Go on. Zhang Yangping waved his hands. Fang Zhengji pulled on the horse reins. The silver scale horse neighed loudly and galloped forward. You must remember, even if you can't pass this capital examination, it's all right. The entire village and I will always support you. Don't be embarrassed to return. Zhang Yangping's shouts came from behind him. On the other hand, Fang Zhengji twitched his mouth. What, being unable to pass? Normally, among examinees there was the culture of being accompanied on the way to the examination. This was not only because they could take care of one another, but also due to safety. From the Huaiyan County to the River of Trust capital, it required half a month on horseback, and along the way were many mountain paths and barren lands. Due to being delayed for a few days at the Huaiyan County, and then making a return trip back to the northern mountain village, hence was rather rushed for time. When he managed to return to the Huaiyan County, most of the examinees had already formed groups and left. Left without a choice, he could only ride alone. Wilding galloping all the way, clouds of dust were raised behind him. His luck was indeed rather good, only after galloping for 8 days did he meet a group of mountain bandit robbers. Robbery. A few bandits wielding sabers blocked Fang Zhengji's path. At the same time those few bandits opened their mouth, over 10 bandits with their bows drawn appeared from the bushes on both sides of the mountain road, each of their metal bows pulled into the shape of a full moon. Arrows glowing with an icy glint aimed directly at Fang Zhengji's throat. Maybe, Fang Zhengji only needed to say the word "no" for him to understand the bitter beauty of an arrow rain. Just as Fang Zhengji was being robbed, the River of Trust capital was exploding with activity. The River of Trust capital was the source of the River of Trust, backed by a tall mountain. On the mountain was a large green pool, its name was Serene Ink Pond. It was the source of the River of Trust, and a white jade statue was constructed in the middle of the pond, set quietly in the pond and being bowed to by scholars from every place. And today, the countless scholars dressed in brocade clothes gathered around the Serene Ink Pond. Some were smiling, walking along calmly and occasionally drinking a mouth of pond water and singing a few words of praise. Some sat down gracefully, admiring the mountains, the water, and the flow of people. Water was the soul of all creation. Anywhere there was water, naturally there would be ancient and elegantly constructed restaurants. It only had to hang up a few words of poems like, "The Serene Ink Pond's unique water, high on the mountains," were people, in order to cause all the scholars to gather. Even though the price was many times higher, it couldn't affect their refined and elegant attitude of minds. Yan Xiu, wearing his brocade robe, was different from the group of scholars visiting the Serene Ink Pond. Even though he didn't paint nor recite poetry like those scholars, but he had money. Hence, the best sightseeing garret at the Serene Ink Pond was occupied by him. And he even reserved it for an entire month at one go. After following someone for a long enough time, his personality would be more or less affected by him. For example, the strong-bearded man's current manner was silent, neither happy nor angry. Of course, compared to Yan Xiu's coldness, the strong-bearded man's success still lagged behind a little. Within the garret, a maid sat respectfully in front of the table. Her hands flew about, pouring tea for Yan Xiu. On the other hand, Yan Xiu was gazing coldly at the scholars appearing non-stop by the Serene Ink Pond site. Below the garret, at a rather lively table, a few brocade-clothed scholars bobbed their heads and discussed excitedly. Quick look, another person from the Hidden Dragon Roll arrived at the River of Trust capital. Are you talking about Kong Xingping? Even though Kong Xingping is number 80 in the Hidden Dragon Roll, but, compared to those few at the River of Trust capital now, the difference is still huge. Indeed, I never thought that just a capital examination would attract so many people from faraway lands to participate. Tang Yucheng, number 30.5 in the Hidden Dragon Roll, with the Enlightenment state of Divine Seal Peak state, I heard that he had already touched the threshold of the Star Conglomerate state. Especially that Hua Kangan. Number 20 on the Hidden Dragon Roll, with the Enlightenment state of the Star Conglomerate state. At the same time, his name is also on the Rising Dragon Roll. Who would have thought that he would actually come to the River of Trust? The few scholars sighed heavily as they discussed. Looks like this time's River of Trust capital examinations wouldn't be easy to pass. Even I wish to change to some other capital. Taking the examination in this River of Trust capital is really a form of torture. This thought is good, but changing capital now. How do you change? Just the distance alone is too long to make it in time. Furthermore, even though the number of participants in this time's River of Trust capital is large, but the good thing is that this is a very rare occasion. Else why do you think all these people would all come to the River of Trust capital? Brother Li is indeed right, ha ha ha. I was just making a joke. If we didn't want to try, why would we be here? Yan Xiu quietly sat in the garret and listened. His expression was cold, and he didn't speak a word. He also didn't bother paying any attention to the maid pouring his tea. But, he instinctively tightened the grip on the golden-boned silver thread fan in his hands.